Dear listeners, a new day and a new story to discuss. Today, I'm going to tell you a story that interests me. Listen and write down what you think about this situation. I'm interested in your opinions. Hey everyone, it's Harrison here. I begin, my voice a mix of weariness and disbelief. Today, I'm unfolding a chapter of my life that still feels like a surreal nightmare. It was a crisp October evening, the kind where the autumn leaves cradle your steps with a crunchy embrace. I remember walking down the streets of our small town, lost in thoughts about Evelyn, my girlfriend, or should I say, the girl who turned my world upside down. Our story wasn't just any high school sweetheart tale. It was one woven with dreams, passion, and promises. Since we were teenagers, we had been inseparable. I was 14, she was 15. A perfect match, or so I thought. The first sign of trouble was subtle, almost imperceptible. It was a text message, or the lack thereof. Hey, dinner at 8? I had texted her, expecting a flurry of emojis and a can't wait in response. But all I got was a cold, okay. I muttered to myself. This wasn't the Evelyn I knew. The Evelyn I knew would have followed that up with a string of exclamation marks and a cheeky comment about my cooking. But this was unlike her. I pushed the thought aside, attributing it to stress from her new business venture. But deep down, a seed of doubt had been planted. Fast forward to that fateful night when she went for her usual pub crawl with her friends. I had a game to catch, so I couldn't join her. Have fun, babe, I said, kissing her goodbye, oblivious to the storm that was brewing. The game was intense, my team won, and the euphoria of victory was palpable. But amidst the cheering and the clinking of beer glasses, my mind kept drifting back to Evelyn. It was unlike her not to check in, not to send her usual missing you texts. Then came the message that tore a hole through the fabric of our relationship. Hey, Evelyn left early. Said she'd take a cab, texted her friend. My heart sank. Something was off. I rushed home, anxiety clawing at my chest. The house was dark, eerily silent. I checked my phone. No messages, no missed calls. Where was she? Hours ticked by. Finally, I heard the sound of a cab pulling up. I ran to the door, expecting to see her smiling face. But what I saw was a shell of the woman I loved. Her eyes were void of their usual sparkle, her steps hesitant. Hey, I reached for her, longing for her embrace, but she recoiled. My heart stopped. This was not the Evelyn I knew. What's wrong? I asked, my voice trembling with a cocktail of fear and confusion. I'm just tired, Harrison, she mumbled, avoiding my gaze. Long night. But it wasn't just fatigue in her eyes. It was something else, something darker. A secret, perhaps. The night was spent in restless silence. I lay next to her, but it felt like she was miles away. The woman sleeping beside me was a stranger, and our bed, once a haven of love and warmth, now felt cold and unwelcoming. The morning sun did little to dispel the darkness that had settled in my heart. Evelyn was distant, her responses curt. Is everything okay? I prodded, desperate for a glimpse into her thoughts. Everything's fine, she said, her voice devoid of conviction. But I knew better. Something had changed, something fundamental. As she left for work, I sat there, alone, grappling with a myriad of emotions. Betrayal, confusion, fear. The walls of our home, once filled with laughter and love, now echoed with the silent screams of a relationship unraveling. And so began the unraveling of us, of everything we had built over the years. Little did I know, it was just the beginning of a journey that would test the very limits of my heart and soul. Stay tuned, I conclude, my voice a mix of sorrow and determination. Because this, my friends, is just the start of a story that's as real as it gets. All right, folks, Harrison here again. I start, my voice heavy with the weight of memories. Buckle up, because this chapter of my life is a roller coaster that I never saw coming. It was a night like any other, or so I thought, as I trudged home from the local pub, my team's victory still fresh in my mind. The streets were shrouded in a hazy glow from the streetlights, casting long shadows that seemed to dance with every step I took. I remember the crispness of the air, a stark contrast to the turmoil brewing inside me. Evelyn's text, saying she'd be late and not to wait up, lingered in my mind like an uninvited guest. I couldn't shake off the unease that clung to me like a second skin. She's just out with friends, I reassured myself, trying to ignore the nagging doubt. As I approached our home, the sight of it, bathed in the soft moonlight, should have been comforting. But it wasn't. The darkness seemed to swallow the house, making it appear more ominous than welcoming. I unlocked the door, half expecting to find Evelyn asleep on the couch or maybe even a note explaining her late return. But the house was silent, unnervingly so. The clock ticked mockingly, emphasizing the emptiness. I paced the living room, each step echoing loudly in the stillness. Where could she be? I wondered aloud, my mind racing with possibilities. Then, my phone buzzed. It was a text from her friend, the designated driver of the night. Hey, just so you know, Evelyn left with someone else. Thought she'd have told you. My heart plummeted. Left with someone else? I read the text over and over, each word a hammer to my chest. Frantic, I dialed Evelyn's number. No answer. I called again, my hand shaking. This time, she picked up. Evelyn, where are you? I blurted out, my voice a mix of fear and anger. Harrison, relax. I'm just in a cab, on my way back, she replied, her voice strangely calm. Who did you leave with? The question hung heavily in the air. There was a pause, a moment that felt like an eternity. Just some friends from the pub, she said, too quickly. The line went dead, and a cold realization washed over me. This was not just another night. This was the beginning of the end. I sat in the darkness, waiting, the tick-tock of the clock now a cruel reminder of the passing time. Hours later, I heard the front door creak open. Evelyn stepped in, her footsteps hesitant. Hey, I greeted her, my voice barely above a whisper. We need to talk. She looked at me, her eyes betraying a flicker of something I couldn't quite place. Guilt? Fear? Regret? Harrison, She started, but her words trailed off. Why did you lie about who you were with? I asked, my voice steady despite the chaos inside me. Evelyn sighed, a sound that seemed to carry the weight of unspoken truths. I didn't think it was a big deal. It was just a group from the pub. But her eyes couldn't meet mine, and in that moment, I knew. The woman I loved, the woman I thought I knew, was hiding something. The night stretched on, a taut string ready to snap. We sat in silence, the space between us filled with unasked questions and unsaid words. The once cozy living room now felt like a cold, foreign land. As dawn broke, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, the reality of our situation sunk in. This wasn't just a misunderstanding or a small bump in our journey. This was a revelation, a painful, jarring revelation that threatened to tear apart everything we had built. And that's where I'll leave you hanging for now, I conclude, my voice a mix of resignation and resolve. Because trust me, this story is far from over. Hey again, it's Harrison, I begin, a somber tone in my voice. This chapter of my story, well, it's the kind that hits you when you least expect it. In the days following the night of revelations, a heavy fog of uncertainty hung over our home. The air was thick with unsaid words and unshed tears. Evelyn and I moved around each other like two planets in a decaying orbit, close yet galaxies apart. Then came the day that changed everything. It was a routine Tuesday, or so it seemed. I was working from home, emails piling up, deadlines looming. But my mind wasn't on work. It was on Evelyn and the gnawing doubt that had taken root in my heart. I remember glancing at the clock. It was nearing 2 p.m., the time Evelyn usually took her lunch break. On a whim, I decided to surprise her with a quick video call. Maybe, just maybe, seeing her face would ease the growing chasm between us. I dialed her number, my heart beating a nervous rhythm. She picked up after a few rings, her face filling the screen of my phone. Hey, what's up? She greeted, a strained smile on her lips. Just wanted to see how your day's going, I said, attempting a casual tone. It was then that I noticed it. A flash of red in the corner of the screen. A piece of fabric that didn't belong. A bra, distinctly not Evelyn's, lying carelessly on the floor behind her. My heart stopped. Evelyn, I stammered. What's that behind you? Her eyes flickered to the side, following my gaze. The color drained from her face. Oh, that? It's just, something I bought recently, she replied, her voice faltering. But I knew Evelyn's lingerie, and that was definitely not hers. The knot in my stomach tightened. You don't have to lie to me, Evelyn. Please, just tell me the truth. She hesitated, then moved to adjust the camera angle, obscuring the incriminating evidence. Harrison, it's nothing, really. Let's talk later, okay? The call ended abruptly, leaving me in a storm of confusion and dread. I sat there, staring at the blank screen, my mind racing. The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, each one more painful than the last. The following weeks were a blur. I threw myself into work, trying to escape the reality that was slowly unraveling before me. Evelyn became more distant, her presence in the house like a ghost of the woman I once knew. Then came the day I decided to confront her. I couldn't live in this limbo anymore. I needed answers, no matter how much they hurt. I waited for her to come home from work. my heart pounding in my chest. As she walked through the door, I could see the apprehension in her eyes. "Evelyn, we need to talk." "Now," I said, my voice firm. She sighed, a weary look on her face. "What is it, Harrison?" "The bra, Evelyn. It wasn't yours. And don't tell me it was nothing because I know it wasn't." My words were like bullets, each one loaded with pain and betrayal. Evelyn's facade crumbled. The tears she had been holding back spilled over, carving wet trails down her cheeks. "Harrison, I don't know how to say this. I made a mistake. A terrible mistake." The confession hit me like a physical blow. My world, once so certain, was now a chaos of broken dreams and shattered trust. We sat in the living room, the same room where we had shared countless laughs and plans for the future. But now, it was just a hollow shell, echoing with the remnants of a love that was slowly dying. As Evelyn recounted her indiscretion, her words were like a knife, slicing through the last threads of hope I had clung to. The details didn't matter. The damage was done. And that's where I'll stop for now, I say, my voice a mere whisper. Because some blows, they're just too hard to put into words. "Harrison here," I begin, my voice reflecting the turmoil within. The aftermath of a storm is often as tumultuous as the storm itself. That's exactly what unfolded in this chapter of my life. The days following Evelyn's confession were a haze of disbelief and desolation. The woman I had loved, trusted, and built dreams with had become a stranger, her actions casting long shadows over our shared past. Our home, once a sanctuary of love and laughter, now felt like a prison of broken promises. We were two lost souls, orbiting the wreckage of what we once had. One evening, as I sat staring at the empty chair across from me, the silence was broken by Evelyn's hesitant steps. She stood there, wringing her hands, a picture of remorse. "Harrison, can we talk?" Her voice was barely above a whisper, but it cut through the silence like a knife. I nodded, unable to trust my voice. The air between us was heavy with words unsaid, emotions unexpressed. "I'm so sorry," she began, tears brimming in her eyes. "I know I've hurt you beyond repair. I just lost my way." I looked at her, really looked at her, seeing the vulnerability, the guilt. It was all there, laid bare. "Evelyn, why?" It was the only question that mattered. "Why did you do it?" She sighed, a sound laden with regret. "I don't know, Harrison. I wish I could explain it. I wish I could undo it." We sat in silence, the chasm between us wider than ever. The ticking of the clock in the background seemed to echo the passing of our love, minute by minute, second by second. As the days turned into weeks, our interactions became a dance of avoidance and pain. We talked, but only about necessities. The warmth, the connection, it was all gone. One day, I came home to find Evelyn packing her things. The sight of her, surrounded by boxes and suitcases, was a stark reminder of the finality of our situation. "What are you doing?" My voice was steady, but inside, I felt a storm raging. "I can't stay here, Harrison. Not after everything. I need to give you space to figure things out," she replied, not meeting my eye. "Is this it then? Is this how it ends?" The question hung in the air, heavy with the weight of a decade's worth of memories. Evelyn paused, her hands trembling. "I don't know, Harrison. I really don't know." That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. The room felt cavernous, the absence of her presence like a gaping wound. My mind replayed our years together, each memory now tinged with a bitter hue. The next morning, I woke up to an empty house. Evelyn had left, leaving behind a note with words that offered little solace. "I'm sorry for everything. I hope one day you can forgive me." And just like that, the chapter of our life together closed. But the story, my story, was far from over. The aftermath of betrayal is a journey, one that tests the very core of who you are. So, here I am, I conclude, my voice a mix of sadness and resolve, standing amidst the ruins, trying to find a way to rebuild. "Hey, it's Harrison once again," I say, my voice a somber echo of the turmoil within. In life, some decisions change everything. Here's the chapter where I made mine. The days after Evelyn left were like walking through a thick fog. Our home, now so silent and empty, was a constant reminder of what had been. Everywhere I looked, memories leaped out, each one a sharp jab to my already wounded heart. I tried to immerse myself in work, in hobbies, anything to fill the gaping void she left behind. But the silence was always there, waiting for me at the end of each day. Then, one rainy evening, as I sat at our dining table, surrounded by the shadows of our past, my phone rang. It was Evelyn. "Harrison, can we meet? I need to talk to you." Her voice was hesitant, laced with a desperation I hadn't heard before. I agreed, more out of a need for closure than anything else. We decided to meet at the small cafe where we had our first date, a place that once symbolized the beginning of us. As I walked in, the familiar smell of coffee and pastries hit me, bringing a flood of memories. There she was, sitting at our old table, looking as lost and broken as I felt. "Harrison," she began, her eyes not quite meeting mine. "I've been doing a lot of thinking. About us, about everything." "So have I replied, my voice steady but my hands trembling. "I know I've hurt you, more than I can ever make up for. But I can't just walk away from what we had. I still love you, Harrison." Her voice cracked with emotion. I looked at her, really looked at her. The woman I had loved, the woman who had shattered my trust. "Evelyn, love isn't enough. Not after what happened." She reached out, her hand trembling as it touched mine. "I know I don't deserve a second chance, but I'm asking for one. Please, Harrison." I pulled my hand away, the physical distance mirroring the emotional chasm between us. "I can't, Evelyn. It's not just about forgiving. It's about forgetting, and I can't do that. I can't forget the betrayal, the lies." Tears streamed down her face, each one a testament to the pain we both felt. "I understand," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the sound of the rain outside. We sat there in silence, two people bound by a past that had irrevocably changed. The finality of the moment was overwhelming. As I stood up to leave, I looked at her one last time. "I hope you find happiness, Evelyn." "I truly do." Walking out of the cafe, the rain felt like a baptism, washing away the remnants of a love that once was. It was the end of a chapter, but not the end of my story. This decision, as hard as it was, it's a step towards healing, towards a new beginning, I conclude, my voice a mix of pain and hope. And that's where I'll leave you for now, on the precipice of a new chapter. Harrison here, with the final piece of this tale. I say, my voice tinged with a mix of resolution and melancholy. Moving on isn't just a phrase, it's a journey, and here's mine. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months. The world continued to spin, indifferent to the upheaval in my life. But for me, every sunrise was a reminder of the void left by Evelyn's absence. I spent long nights staring at the ceiling, lost in thoughts. The silence of our home echoed with the ghosts of our laughter, our arguments, our dreams. It was during one of these sleepless nights that I decided I couldn't drown in my sorrow anymore. I had to swim, even if the shore was nowhere in sight. I started with small steps, reclaiming bits and pieces of my life. I rearranged the furniture, got rid of things that reminded me too painfully of her. It felt like scrubbing away the past, but the scars remained, hidden yet palpable. One evening, as I sorted through a box of old photographs, a friend called. "Hey Harrison, how about a night out? Just like old times." His voice was cautious, yet hopeful. I hesitated, then agreed. The outside world felt like a foreign land, but I knew I had to step out eventually. The night was a blur of neon lights and loud music. I found myself in the midst of old friends, their familiar faces a balm to my bruised soul. Yet, amidst the laughter and chatter, I felt out of place, like a piece of a puzzle forced into the wrong spot. "Doing okay, man?" one of them asked, clapping a hand on my shoulder. "Yeah, just taking it one day at a time," I replied, forcing a smile. As the night wore on, I realized that moving on wasn't about forgetting or erasing the past. It was about learning to live with it, to make peace with the memories. One day, I found myself at the park where Evelyn and I often walked. The trees stood tall and proud, their leaves whispering secrets to the wind. I sat on a bench, lost in thought. A child's laughter broke my reverie. A little girl was chasing a fluttering butterfly, her joy infectious. Watching her, a realization dawned on me. Life was still beautiful, still worth living, despite the heartaches. "Hey there, need some company?" A voice jolted me out of my thoughts. I looked up to see a woman, around my age, smiling down at me. "Sure, why not?" I replied, surprised at my own willingness to engage. We talked about everything and nothing. Her name was Anna, and her laughter was like a melody, light and carefree. For a moment, I let myself enjoy the conversation, the simple pleasure of human connection. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, I realized that this was what moving on felt like. It wasn't a grand gesture or a moment of epiphany. It was these small, seemingly insignificant moments that slowly stitched the fabric of a new life. "Thanks for the chat, Harrison. It was nice meeting you," Anna said, as we parted ways. "You too, Anna. Take care," I replied, feeling a sense of lightness I hadn't felt in a long time. Walking back home, I looked up at the sky, now a canvas of twilight hues. I felt a sense of hope, a whisper of a new beginning. And that's where I am now, I conclude. My voice a blend of nostalgia and newfound strength. On the path of moving on, one step at a time.